So we pick up this story of Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi. Now, at the beginning of the story, Naomi and her husband, Elimelech, go into the country of Moab because there was famine and hardship and they needed food. So they went and traveled there. They had sons. Their sons married daughters. Moabite women became their daughters-in-law. And then the worst happened. The men all died. And these widows are struck with grief, clinging to one another, crying, and not knowing what to do next. Well, Naomi decides that she's going to return to Israel, her homeland, to Bethlehem in Judah. And she says to the women to stay back. Orpah, one of her daughters-in-law, says, okay. But Ruth clings to her mother-in-law and goes with her back to a place she has never been, to a strange land, and decides to make her home with her mother-in-law. She decides that even though she knows life will be difficult, it will be better for them to be together than it will be for them to be apart. So she goes. And that's where we pick up our story today in chapter 2 of the book of Ruth. This story of God bending the rules and doing amazing things with God's people. And we learn in the very first verse of this chapter that Naomi's husband, Elimelech, has kinsmen, has relatives in this area. And one of the relatives happens to be this guy named Boaz, who is pretty wealthy and has a lot of land. It's just this aside that's tossed out there in the beginning of this story, seemingly out of place even. But we learn about this man named Boaz, and then we go right back to the story of Ruth and Naomi. And here they are, hungry in a foreign country, not knowing what to do next. And Ruth decides that she is going to go out and find food. In that time, it was called gleaning. There were rules. And Boaz, being a good Jewish man, a rule follower, in the family of Elimelech, remember, his name meant El. The first part of his name was the pronoun for God. And Melech is the Hebrew word for king. So his name meant God is king. They were a good, faithful family. They knew the rules, and Boaz was no different. He left the edge of his field for gleaning. That was the law. We read it from Leviticus. So that people who were struggling, people who needed help, could go and get food. It was meant for abundance, so that people would be fed. Now, this was above and beyond your tithe, right? Part of the law states that you give your first fruits because really everything belongs to God. And so as a thank offering, a first fruits offering, you gave the best, the 10% of the best of your crop, of what you had, your work, back to God. You took it to the temple. This was above and beyond that. You were to leave the edge of your field for those who went without. Widows, orphans, people without a family, people without protection or help or means could come and find food. That was the law. So Ruth goes out and starts to glean. She starts to gather. And as it happened, she just wanders into the field of Boaz. As it happens, just along the way. There she is. She finds herself in the field of Boaz, and she gleans, and she works, and she gathers, and she harvests from the edge of the field. And people start to notice her. The reapers in Boaz's field see her. Now, I don't know if it's because she's wearing different clothing or if people from Moab looked different. I don't know why they noticed this woman, but they noticed her. I do know they noticed her because of her work ethic. That's what the text says, right? She worked from the very beginning of the morning all through the day, and she didn't even sit down. Can you imagine working in the hot sun? I mean, I try and weed my garden, and I'm done in about 15 minutes. I'm just, whew. But there she was, gleaning and working in the heat of the day. And the reapers take notice of her. And Boaz, as it happens, just comes along to his field and looks out and sees all his workers. Well, who's that woman? He notices her. And he calls over some of his reapers and says, who is that reaping in my field? Who is that gleaning? And they say, oh, that's Ruth, the Moabite. She is the woman who gave up everything and followed your relative Naomi back from Moab and has been with her and helping her this whole time. He noticed her. And then they said, and she has been working all day in the heat of the sun. So when it came time for lunch, he invited her to join them at the table. This is where the rules start to get bent a little bit. I mean, yes, Boaz followed the rules. He let people glean at the edge of his field. But this was different. He invited her to come and eat with them. He heaped up parched grain in front of her, more than she could eat. Abundance and generosity. Wow. This is a little outside the norm, right? To invite a foreigner that you don't know to come and sit at your table just because she's been gleaning in your field. But then Boaz takes it even further. And he tells his reapers, his workers, now first of all, keep your hands off. And second of all, you let her reap also in the main part of the field. And maybe even you can drop a couple of grains behind you as you go, so she has more. He keeps expanding it and expanding it and expanding it until she's right there with the reapers picking the standing sheaves of barley for herself. These are not the rules, friends. This is not the way it's supposed to go. I mean, sure, a generous, good, faithful person can leave the edge of the field, but to invite Moabites into your field to keep what they reap is just outside the bounds of what's supposed to happen here. It's a fascinating story of generosity and love. And we learned last week a new word for that kind of abundant generosity and blessing. Anybody remember? Chesed. Chesed. God's generous, abundant blessing poured out. That's what Boaz was pulling from, right? He knew that all he had was God's. And he pulled from that generosity, that feeling, and out of that abundance shared all that he had with this woman that he had never met before, never seen before that day. It just so happened that she walked into that field, and it just so happened that the reapers took notice of her, and it just so happened that they ran into Boaz and told him this story about his relative, and it just so happened that he invited her to lunch and then welcomed her into this abundance. So by the end of the day, it says in our text that Ruth had gathered an ephah of barley. 30 pounds of barley. Wow! Can you imagine trying to haul home 30 pounds of barley grain? After working all day in the hot sun without sitting down once? Amazing. Amazing. And she gets back and Naomi says, "Where have you been? Where did you get all of that? How is this possible? What happened?" I know there's a story here. And Ruth says, "Well, I just happened into the field of this guy named Boaz." And Naomi says, "I know that guy. He's a family member of ours. You will be safe there. Stay in that field. Glean with them. I know you will be safe. He is our relative. He will protect you." Wow. What an amazing story. What a powerful story. What I love about this story of Ruth is that God doesn't seem to show up in the ways that God has shown up in God's story thus far in the Bible. Normally, in these kind of stories, God or an angel shows up and says, in a physical form, and says, "Hi, don't be afraid," right? Because everybody's like, I mean, if an angel showed up in your life, you'd probably be terrified too. I know I would be. But that's not how it happens in this story. There's no big angel or a blinding white light. People aren't cowering in fear. In this story, God shows up in the lives and relationships of people. It's much more familiar to me, honestly. That's how I experience God's presence in my life. In and through the relationships of other people. In the "it just so happened" kind of moments of my life. I don't know about you, but when those kind of extraordinary things happen, you think it has to be more than just a coincidence, right? You just so happen to be walking along and there's Boaz's field and you're just going to start gleaning, right? That's just a coincidence. I don't think so. I think God works in and through us and calls us to share the love and the abundance that was first shown to us, right? It's a pay it forward kind of a thing. We get that. I mean, even people at Starbucks get that. You go through and all of a sudden 16 people's coffees have been paid for ahead of time. I don't know how that happens. But it inspires you, right? It makes you want to pay for the next guy in line, right? Or girl. That kind of generosity is infectious. It gets inside of us somehow. It's an amazing story. And that's where God shows up in this story. And the characters in this story are able to see it. and say, that's God's blessing. That's God's love showing up in your life. Stay with that. It's amazing. It's powerful. It's in those as it happened kind of moments. God slips in unannounced from the side. A simple blessing, a simple as it happened. God's chesed, God's faithfulness, God's love, God's abundance. Embracing those two widows, embracing us. Encouraging us not to just write it off as some kind of happenstance or cute story, but to acknowledge it for what it is. God's blessing and God's love poured out, abundant. My prayer for us this week is that we see those as it happened kind of moments in our lives. That we see God's work powerfully in and through the people around us. That we see that blessing and that love in those as it happened kind of moments. And that we're able to call it out for what it is. Say, that's God. That's God's love for me. And to be able to feel so full of that love and that abundance in our lives that we can share that gift and be generous like Boaz and bend the rules a little bit. Those rules that hold us from doing those things that we feel called to do. To just step out a little bit. Be risky like Ruth. Be willing to trust that God's got this. To find that generosity and that love, that chesed, wherever we go, and to share it with those we meet. Amen.
Will you pray with me? Life-giving God, sustainer of hope, comforter in the midst of loss, everlasting truth. We thank you today for Ruth. We thank you for her faithfulness. Thank you for her risk-taking, for her courage, for her spirit of determination to provide for the needs of her family. Despite the fact that she was given permission to remain amongst her own people, she followed Naomi, who followed you back home.